Welcome to the fourth season of the Insights Career Club podcast. Hey, I'm Sindy Thomas, your career strategist and coach, bringing you career advice and tips from me and experts on different careers. We were recognized and honored by FeedSpot as one of the top 20 job search podcasts. And we're here to help you build a meaningful career. Stay tuned. Up next is a fantastic podcast. Hey there, insiders. This week's guest is Thomas Dudley. He is a passionate advocate for employee-owned companies. While he was at Stanford working on a PhD in organizational behavior, he was also doing research. He discovered a new passion, so much so that he left Stanford while working on his thesis to pursue his dream, and he later co-founded a company called Certified Employee Owned in 2017. Now, in case you don't know, employee ownership creates life-changing wealth for workers while increasing trust, respect, and job stability. But the benefits aren't just for employees. These companies have a higher productivity rate, growth, as well as engagement. Stay tuned for more about him. Let's welcome him into the show. Hey, Thomas, welcome into the Insiders Career Club podcast.
Great to be here, Cindy. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I am very pleased to have you on board for this call. Let's go ahead and get started. Would you tell us a little bit about you? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I'm Thomas Dudley. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Certified Employee Owned. I'm actually from the Bay Area, grew up in San Ramon. I was born in Roseville, California, but we moved down there when I was about 9. So that's really where I feel like I grew up and kind of formed myself. Yeah.
All right. And you're not still here. You've moved to another state, correct?
That's correct. Now, my wife and 2 kids, we all live in Austin, Texas. My wife's from Houston and has a big family. So that got us out to Texas when we had some
time. Makes sense. Okay. So share a little with us about your career path before grad school and how working impacted your decision to go back to school and get a PhD from Stanford.
Yeah, great. So I went to college at the University of Virginia, studied physics and math. At that point in my life, thought I might end up being a scientist or some sort of engineer. But in college, got really interested in business. And so I actually got a job out of college working at Bain & Company, a management consulting firm, actually in San Francisco. So moved back to the Bay. Spent a few years doing that. Really was interested in kind of the business aspects of that. Spent a year actually working in an internal strategy group at Bain as well. And somewhere along the line, met someone who had worked at Bain kind of prior to me through friends who had gone on to do a PhD program in organizational behavior. And it felt like a really good mix of my interests, kind of in science, but then also business, very practical. And I'd been very interested in questions of business strategy and organizational design. So kind of pursuing those interests, I applied to a number of PhD programs in business schools, was lucky enough to get into the organizational behavior program at Stanford Business School, went there. And then actually, I should say, I don't have a PhD. I actually left in the middle of that, start Certified EO, but that might be kind of the next thing to talk about.
Okay. All right. So what made you decide to start your own company and lead your program?
Yeah. So going into the PhD program, I just really dove in. And one of my interests coming in was just how the structure of a business impacts performance and then the lives of the people working at that company.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's just huge. I mean, it's kind of the biggest thing you do with your time. If you think about where you spend most of your time each day, right? Maybe second sleep, and maybe not for everyone. So just kind of had a lot of questions about the role of business in people's lives and the role of the structure of business in that and the company's success. So my advisor pretty quickly pointed me in the direction of work on employee ownership, which I didn't know much about heading into grad school. Really dove into all that work. Some academics like Joseph Blasi and Doug Cruz have done a lot of work on employee-owned business and found all these great things in terms of performance advantages and the impacts on people's lives, helping people build tens or even hundreds, sometimes millions of dollars in wealth, normal people. Just thought it was all super inspiring and loved it. And for a little while thought, I should do research on employee-owned companies. But there was already a lot of research on employee-owned companies, and the more I dove into it, the more I just couldn't, the cooler and cooler I thought employee ownership was, I just couldn't believe that I'd never heard about it before. Working at a management consulting firm or being exposed to the world of business, I just couldn't believe I'd never heard about this. And the more I saw the research, the more I realized there was already a lot of great studies on this. And maybe we don't need another study. Maybe what we need is actually a way for people to find these companies and to know about these companies. And so that kind of led me towards this idea of the certification program, Certified Employee Owned, which I ultimately kind of started working on a little bit while I was doing the PhD and then left about 3 years in to go pursue full time.
All right. Sounds great. As you were saying, how little people kind of really know about employee-owned programs and employee-owned companies, and they don't really understand what the difference is, how it actually can impact them in a positive way. I find that to be very true because I don't think I know I did not. I may have worked for privately held companies, but they were not employee-owned. And so let's talk more about that. So how long have you been doing this with your company, and what's your vision for Certified Employee Owned?
Yeah, we launched Certified Employee Owned officially September of 2017. So just over 6 years. And there was a little bit of time before that, kind of laying the groundwork, and obviously the time in grad school. So I've probably been thinking about employmentship for about a decade. With Certified Employee Owned, over the past 6 years, we've grown from a small number of initial members up to about 600 companies. They have probably around 200,000 combined employee owners, maybe 250,000. Large consumer-facing companies like Wawa and Winco Foods, but 80% of them are B2B, manufacturing, engineering, construction, distribution, professional services. In the Bay Area, for example, Recology is 100% employee-owned, one of our members. So there's all these great companies out there that are employee-owned, and we've certified about 10% of them. And our broad vision is really to promote the model and help more and more people understand that this is out there. We want them to understand the benefits of, say, working at an employee-owned business or doing business with an employee-owned company. We want to make it very real so people understand, hey, this is an opportunity for you to go get a job where when the company does well, you get a piece of that through ownership. And this is potentially a way to make thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars more than you would working at a non-employee-owned business. And by the way, it's a different culture. It's a different experience showing up day to day. There's more alignment. People are more motivated. They care more. And the company thinks about you a little differently because you're not just an employee, you're also an owner. So we really want to tell that story. We want to make it very easy for people to plug into the space if they're interested. Help them find companies near them that are employee owned. Help them find jobs at employee owned companies. Really just promote the model and then obviously direct resources back to the companies to help grow the space.
Okay. So as you were talking, I found a new question to ask you. So are you working more with companies that are already employee owned and you're certifying them, or are you helping other companies that are not employee owned become employee owned certified or certified employee owned?
That's a great question. So we generally work with companies that are already employee owned, and we certify them and we help them promote it. We really help them share their ownership story. But because we are very visible and we're kind of the branding and promotional campaign for the community, we do end up talking to a good number of business owners as well. And in that case, we're actually a really good first touch point for them because we don't do the conversions. So we're very neutral. We're obviously big believers in the model, big advocates for it. And so I'm happy to talk to business owners as well to help them get oriented and understand like which path into employership could make sense for them. And then I'll typically hand them off to people I know in the space who do those conversions, and if they're interested in taking that next step and exploring further.
So it's more like a partnership for you to be able to say, now that you're really interested and you want to do this, let me connect you with the company. Oh, here we go. With a company that can help you make this happen.
That's right. And we don't have any like referral partnerships or anything like that. I don't make money with those referrals. I just want there to be more employee-owned companies, and I want to help business owners get involved.
Okay. All right. So would you share in detail how the program works?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we meet a company that's employee owned and they want to get certified, first step is to verify that they meet our membership standards and our definition of employee owned, which at a high level is that 30% of the business is owned by employees, excluding founders, and that ownership is broad-based. Access is open to everyone and concentration is limited.
Okay.
So we go through and verify that. We have a questionnaire they fill out. We review some legal documents. Generally, it doesn't take that long. It's pretty straightforward to figure out if a company's employee-owned or not and verify that information. And once in a while, a company doesn't meet our standards, but we normally figure out if they do or don't when we're kind of exploring it. I think broadly, too, our standards about 1 in 200 American businesses meet. So it's a very high bar just in terms of thinking about what it really means to be an employee-owned business. Not many companies meet our standards. Once we do the certification, we then obviously bring them on board. What exactly we do with them kind of depends on the relationship that we scoped out ahead of time, but we'll help them communicate employee ownership internally a lot of the times, provide them playbook and content. We'll often help them use our brand and think about how they're talking about this externally. We have a job board, Employee-Owned Jobs, which you can find on our site or at jobs.certifiedeo.com. And that job board is amazing. So we'll get them set up on the job board. So all their positions are appearing along the 9,000 other jobs we have at all our other members. So kind of help them get set up in that way. And then we also like to try to loop them into our general promotional efforts, right? So get them talking about employership on social media, think about how they're talking about this with their partners, their prospective clients, that sort of thing.
Okay. So what are the benefits to the owners, if it's not employee owned, to go to an employee owned company?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are a few different things. So if you're a business owner, there are a few advantages from employee ownership. One, and a major thing that draws people is really about preserving your legacy, right? If you're a business owner selling to a competitor or to private equity, it's not exactly clear what's going to happen to that business that you spent your life building. But a lot of people are really attracted to the idea of selling it to their employees because it helps reward the people who help make them successful. And it also ensures that business is going to continue to kind of thrive and grow and kind of reinforces the values that business owner put in place to create that company. So legacy is a big component. And I also should mention going employee owned is not an all or nothing situation. You can sell 30 or 40% of the business to the employees. So other owners want to maybe have partial liquidity and create that positive alignment that comes from employee ownership while also maintaining a majority ownership interest themselves.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't think I understood that from our brief conversation earlier, but when you were speaking this time, I did hear that there was a distinction. It did not have to be 100% employee owned. So, yeah, great. And then what are the benefits to the employees that they receive when this shift happens to be from privately held or whatever to employee owned?
There's three main benefits for employees. There's the wealth building, there's the career growth, and then there's also the ownership culture. So in terms of the wealth building, generally specifics vary company to company, but generally what happens is all eligible employees, which is basically people who've been there for a year, are participants in whatever structure is used to grant the ownership to the employees. People don't put money up, generally, not always, but in general, it's best practice not to have people put, for example, like take less in wages or anything like that. So shares are funded out of company profits. The value depends, but on average across our members, it's about $5,000 a year, something like 5% to 15% of salary. So every year, employees get an allocation of company stock, and then that stock is valued based on the share price of the business. So in year 2, you get another allocation, plus your shares from year 1 have changed in value. And if the company's been successful, they've probably grown because the share price has gone up. And so that process can lead to tremendous wealth building over time. It's not a get rich quick scheme, right? That's just not what it is. But there are many examples of people working on the front line of a manufacturing plant or stocking shelves in a grocery store who end up with hundreds of thousands or sometimes even $1 million in their retirement account after a 20, 30 year time period at a successful business. Doesn't happen for everybody, but it's pretty cool to see those examples. I don't think people are becoming a millionaire working at Safeway, but Winco Foods has definitely made some people millionaires, which is awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
No. I don't want to take you off your train of thought. So continue, please.
Yeah. So that's the wealth building. In terms of the career growth, you just see employee-owned companies investing a lot in their people, training, education, leadership development, and then also internal promotion as well.
Okay.
So I think there are better career growth opportunities. And then for everyone, the first day you walk in the door, a more immediate benefit is being part of an ownership culture. So that broad-based ownership really aligns incentives up and down the company. It creates more buy-in. It creates a great positive energy. It really just is very motivating and positive. And that sort of energy, that positive energy is just kind of makes it a better day-to-day working environment.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, it does. Do you find that employee-owned companies tend to be more in certain industries like manufacturing, you mentioned? If you were to think about it, is it more like an hourly in a company that has hourly employees rather than an employee that does not?
There are examples of employee-owned companies in pretty much every industry and every state. If people who are listening are interested, you can go to our website, certifiedio.com, and click on companies. We actually have a directory of every employee-owned business we know about. And so you can search your city, you can filter by industry, by state. So it's a good resource to go actually like look at this yourself. But if you dig into that, what you'll find is that there is broad representation, but there tend to be more employee-owned companies in construction, engineering, and manufacturing.
Okay. I think we covered this next question about what are the next steps for a business if they're interested in finding out more. Now, how long would you say, or approximate, is the timeline for a company to become a certified employee-owned company?
Great. To get certified, it can be something we do in about a week. Sometimes people think about it a little longer, or it takes them about a month to go through the process. But the process itself is pretty straightforward. I mean, the hard part of the process is becoming employee-owned itself, right? And that varies. But I'd say companies can go from not employee-owned to employee-owned in as little as 6 months. Succession, I mean, selling your business is a huge decision. Obviously, a lot of emotional pieces to that, financial pieces. And so I think that generally takes business owners a few years to like begin the process, go through, decide it's what they want to do, and then actually execute the transaction. But if people really are gung-ho, I think they can do it in about 6 months.
Okay. And you don't have any restrictions with regard to where the company is located. You work across the U.S., don't you?
That's correct. Anywhere in the U.S.
Okay. If someone wants to learn more about making the switch to being an employee-owned company, where can they contact you?
Yeah, you can send me an email, thomas@certifiedio.com. Or if you go to our website, you can set up time with us through our contact page. And as I mentioned, I'm more than happy to talk to business owners about this, help them explore options, understand the landscape. Generally, after 20 or 30 minutes, I kind of have a good sense of where I should send people if they want to take the next step. And I send people to, the service providers I know of who maybe best fit their business and their interests.
Okay. How did you come up with this idea?
It really came from the research in the grad school. I just got so interested in this and fell in love with it. I have a little bit of personal experience with it because when I was growing up, my dad worked at Cisco and got some stock options that really had a big impact on my family. So I kind of had like that personal connection. And then just digging into the research, I kind of couldn't believe. At first, I was a little skeptical, like seemed too good to be true, right? So then I just really dove in and started kind of picking at it, and I just was like, wow, this is truly incredible. I mean, it's really a win-win. It's great for people. It's great for business. It's really good for local communities because employee-owned companies are a lot less likely to move or outsource. I just couldn't believe that it wasn't more well-known. And talking about it with a good friend of mine who became my co-founder, we really just felt like a barrier here was lack of visibility. Because if you want to find these companies, you basically have to go dig through government filings and do things that like serious academic researchers are doing, which almost nobody is going to do.
Yeah.
So we just felt like this needs to be easy for people to find. And if we make it really easy and can tell this story, this is going to be huge. And I'd say we're kind of, we think of like B Corporation or Fair Trade as maybe role models. And for both of those, there's just like a long ramp up when you're building your certification program, right? It takes like, as someone said, it takes like 10 years to become an overnight success, right? I think we're on like year 6 of that process.
Yeah, you're working on it. Yeah, that's great. And then how are you getting the word out so that more people know about becoming employee-owned certified?
Yeah, that's great. So a lot of our focus for the first few years has really just been awareness in the employee-ownership community itself. We're 100% funded by employee-owned companies. 100% of our revenue comes from employee-owned businesses. That's who we work for, and that's who we need to let them know about our program first and foremost. And then on top of that, this idea is really a network idea. And so early on, the network is small. And so you really got to focus on building up the value to the members, to the employee-owned companies. But I'd say about a year ago, when we passed 500 members, we really felt like we turned a corner and could see that momentum building and felt like everyone kind of knew who we were, at least of us. And so at that point, we started turning our attention more towards the general public, which is ultimately our main audience at the end of the day. And so we started doing a few different awareness raising activities. That's when we started working on employee-owned jobs to really give people an actionable way to get engaged in this community, right? The number one thing you can do is go work at an employee-owned business.
Right.
Number two is buy their products. And so we felt like we really just kind of completed employee-owned jobs a few months ago. And so now it's really the first time we're doing like more public-facing awareness. So reaching out to people who kind of talk in this space, doing kind of podcasts like this, but then also promoting the employee-owned jobs to community colleges, trade schools, universities. So we're really trying to spread the word among people who might be interested in this idea.
Wonderful. So why is this work fulfilling to you, Thomas?
Yeah, I love this idea. I just am captivated by this. I mean, the reason I started the company is because I was in grad school. I basically had done all my courses. I'd done my like kind of, thesis prep. I basically just had to write a dissertation to get my doctorate. And I would show up every day intending to work on that. And I would spend all day like looking at and trying to figure out stuff about employee-owned businesses. And so I was like, I'm not going to finish my PhD at this rate. Like, it's just not going to happen, right? I can't not do this. I don't know. It was weird. I just like would show up in my desk and this is just what I did all day. So I was like, okay, I think I just have to do this. Like, I think I just have to go for it. I don't know if this is going to work. There aren't a lot of certification programs out there. No one's done that for companies before. So I really don't know if this is going to work. Luckily, I had a good friend who was game to kind of just dive in with me. So that's what we did. I felt like I didn't have a choice. It's kind of what I had to do. And so I feel very fulfilled because I see what these companies do for people. I just love hearing the stories of companies, even when it's kind of bittersweet. But a lot of times the way an employer gets paid, not a lot of times, but sometimes, is when the company sells, right? And so friends have a member sell. It's really sad to see them go. But we had one sell recently. It was a $300 million deal, and they had about 250 employee owners. So on average, people at that company are getting $1 million. It's incredible. Like, it's just absolutely wonderful. I find that so inspiring. And the people at the businesses are just amazing. They're so much fun to work with. So I love it. I get to talk to 600 completely different companies all across the country. I get to learn a lot about all sorts of unique businesses doing really cool things for workers. I love it.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a great example. You're talking about, I had to do this. I was going up to work on my dissertation and I was doing this. You were being led by your heart and your passion, and you followed it, and it's working out. So that's wonderful. And I think when people are thinking about their careers, they need to find the pieces of them that are going to energize them in their work. The work has to energize you in some way, or you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to be good at it. And listening to you, you can hear your passion. It's palpable. And if we can all find that in the work that we do, you're not really working. You're not working. There are days where you actually work. I loved what I did for, the better part of my career, which was 25 to 30 years of recruiting. But I loved it. There are days when it was harder, but I loved what I did, and it makes a difference. And so if there are young people out there listening and thinking about what you want to do for your careers, find something that you really are passionate about, that you've got a plan for, and you will enjoy your work life.
I love the way you put that.
Absolutely. Well, Thomas, it's been my pleasure to speak with you this morning. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Thanks
for having me on. It was great.
Yeah, and for sharing your great story with us. All right, That was a great podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Your support's important to us. Are you recently laid off? Are you feeling lost in a job search? Do you need help getting your career back on track? Our specialized career programs can help you. Our expert can help you get noticed with our Resume RX and innovative job search program. Or you might want to try our Interview Excellence program and Offer Negotiation Bootcamp. You can learn more about our career program menu on our website at www.insiderscareerclub.com. And while you're there, you can also schedule a free assessment call. Don't delay. Take control of your career today. Now, Let's speak a blessing over you. Your future is bright. Believe that your success is on its way to you. And remember, we're here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, take care.